Welcome back to another episode of Sal and Pal Stay at Home and Watch Movies. I'm here with my friend Touly. Say hi, Touly.
Hey, everyone.
And today we're going to be reviewing Godzilla vs. Kong 2021. And just a fair warning, there's going to be spoilers up ahead, so you've been warned. The epic next chapter in the cinematic monsterverse pits two of the greatest icons in motion picture history against one another. The fearsome Godzilla and the mighty Kong, with humanity caught in the balance. My first pro is we get a monster fight, and also we get Mecha Godzilla. I grew up with the original Godzilla movies from Toho. Getting to see a fight versus Mega Godzilla, mind you, I for some reason still favor the old school rubber suit fights, but that's just me. I felt that this one actually would please the new generation of fans, and maybe, just maybe, they would seek out the original works, aka the Toho movies. My next point is that this movie ties in Skull Island and the other Godzilla movies, but it could have done a much better job at it. But yeah, it still links the movies together into a single universe, thus the cinematic monsterverse. My next point is the actors. In the movie, we have well-known actors, and some that got to reprise the role from the previous movies. So that was nice, not having to ask who that new character is and where is he coming from every 5 minutes. Even if some of them should have had their backstory cleared up just a little bit. Yes, I'm looking at you, Ren Shirasawa. Now, on to my cons. Why didn't the movie keep Sing Yi Sang characters or touch upon the loss of Dr. Shirasawa? So they should have kept her or touched upon them by clearing up the loss of Dr. Shirasawa. So they should have kept up with his research and thus lived on for him. Also, we didn't get Madison as the Godzilla Whisperer more developed, just like Gia, the little girl. Imagine Godzilla versus Kong and also 11 versus Gia. Such an epic tag team battle. Okay, well, they wouldn't fight each other, but what I'm getting at is that such as the fighting between the monsters, we would have had Madison. She would have been the translating partner to us from Godzilla's point of view, just like Gia was translating for Kong and how he felt and what he was doing. I mean, isn't that what Madison is there for? Also, the use of Chidora's skull and Ren as the pilot started giving me a Pacific Rim kind of feel to it, and just like Pacific Rim 2, the movie let me down as well in the way they didn't explain some of the missing characters from the previous movies and where they were or what happened to them. There was a big hole in there that wasn't explained properly, and also some of the characters that came back. I wanted the movie to explain their motivation and why they were still driving towards their main goal. Why not just explain or show the way the skull was obtained, or the reason Ren is the pilot and why he could only be the only pilot? They could have summarized that really quickly. There's just so many questions and not a lot of answers, in my personal opinion. One of the biggest issues with me was that they needed to explain why they had to have a Titan, for example Kong, to enter Hollow Earth. Does this mean that he opens a portal, or does this mean that he has a special energy to him that just gets him through, or do they simply just said screw it and just totally ignored the whole subject? I guess the only thing I really enjoyed in this movie was the fight, and that was the ending fight between Godzilla and King Kong, and then thus entering Mecha Godzilla. At the same time, even the fight itself was not that great. To me, it just seemed like it was just taking the old movies from King Kong and Godzilla and mashing it up with Godzilla versus Mega Godzilla and just saying, look, it's good, two different fights, put them together, it's a free-for-all, it's like a Royal Rumble. It just gave me this really nasty taste in my mouth that they were trying to con out on the big epic fight that they were trying to hype up throughout these movies. And it's just like playing a fighting game, and then all of a sudden you just hear, here comes a challenger, without any real purpose. It's just this whole plot that is missing for me personally, being a Godzilla fan. So I guess with that, I'm going to pass it on to my friend Touly and see how he saw the movie and what grade he gave the movie.
I do agree with some of the points that Sal made regarding this movie. When it comes to the plot, I didn't feel that it was the thing that got me through the movie. It was there, I suppose. It served its purpose in terms of giving us the characters, who these characters were in the overall picture of the story, how certain characters were able to lead us to the discovery of Mechagodzilla, how certain characters allowed us to have this more humanistic relationship with Kong. But at the end of the day, as the movie is so entitled, I was just waiting for the confrontation between the titans that were involved in this film. And yes, it was also pretty cool when we got to Kong's homeland, that we saw some of these other creatures there and the sort of interactions Kong had with them. But for me personally, it just boiled down to the interactions that Godzilla and Kong had with one another. And I do agree with Sal that in the grand scheme of things, the fight themselves, they weren't special. overall, I think the CG just elevated those fights a bit, because to see the sort of destruction that was occurring around these titans as they were going at it with one another, you could only imagine how they were going to be able to pull this off. And through the power of special effects, they were able to just get the message across that, yeah, they left a pile of destruction behind them, although unintended in their mind, because that was just like their playing ground. It really set this tone of absurdity, but I could ignore it because just so many components to this film, I felt, if handled in the manner of, okay, we need these things to sort of tie in or make sense and stuff, I think that was already thrown out the window early into the movie. So I'm still not going to disregard those missing aspects of the film, but to me, this movie was pretty much about craziness, titan fights, and although the fights themselves weren't, like I said, special in any retrospect, at least they were there, and I got what the movie was trying to give me. I wasn't expecting a grand story or characters that I was really invested in, other than, of course, Godzilla, Kong, and then Mecha Godzilla, who made an appearance towards the end of the film. I just wanted to see these titans go at it with one another, and the movie did give me that. So I suppose the bad thing in thinking like this is because I was just waiting for these confrontations to happen, then there were a lot of like downtime, in my opinion, and these downtime had to be driven by your human characters. And like I said, they were there, they sort of did their thing. The comedy in this film, some of the lines that were delivered, they were okay, but overall I didn't really find them too funny. I didn't find myself laughing at them. But the way Kong and Godzilla sort of recognized one another at the end of the film, it wasn't unexpected. I mean, I was already thinking at the back of my mind, okay, these guys aren't really like enemies to one another. Something's gonna happen to the point where they need to acknowledge that, hey, we need one another's help in order to overcome something. And sure enough, that did come about with them tag teaming against Mecha Godzilla. So that was a kind of nice little thing that happened between them at the end. And then they acknowledged one another before Godzilla went its separate way, and then Kong ended back in his homeland. Again, if I think too deep into the aftermath of these fights between the titans, it would be kind of insane, because I can only imagine how many people died during the course of that fight in Hong Kong. I mean, the amount of buildings that got destroyed, you know, Kong, Godzilla, Mecha Godzilla just walking about in a city as if it's just a playground to them, but there are civilians down there on the street. The movie doesn't really acknowledge that so many people died at the end of this film. They kind of just disregarded it, you know, let Godzilla sail away, and then Kong kind of quote unquote lives happily ever after back in his homeland. So I guess if you just want to see a film about Godzilla and Kong go at it in a couple of scenes, and then with that Mecha Godzilla being introduced at the end, then the film is there for you. But story-wise and the characters of this film, again, they were there, but it didn't really do much for me. So my overall score for this film is a 6 out of 10. I did still find it enjoyable, but if I were to rewatch it, I would just pretty much skip forward to the fights, basically. So yeah, 6 out of 10 for me.
I totally agree with you. I mean, this movie, to me, it was just similar to the scene we got from Batman vs. Superman when they come up with the name Martha. It's like we didn't see them talk to each other, but they just came to acknowledge each other and team up against Mega Godzilla. Yes, I mean, it would naturally occur with two apex predators having to confront an outside enemy, and Mega Godzilla is sort of an alien from the previous movie. So that did make sense to me, but I could have liked it if it was done a different way or something, or that Godzilla somehow communicated with Madison and Gia said, hey, you guys have to team up, and then they kind of naturally hesitated but eventually got to do it. So the lack of story and plot development and some character development as well, but I was just there for the fight. Felt like I was a kid again and just watching a Godzilla movie just for the actual fight. I didn't really invest much since the beginning in the story because I knew there was not going to be a story or plot, and I was just there for the actual fight. But the fight did let me down a little bit, but other than that, I did kind of enjoy the fight. You know, seeing Godzilla rendered the way he was rendered and Kong the way he was done. Like Touly said, the special effects and the CG involved, it kind of made it more pleasable to the eye versus the original movies. But still, my grade for this movie is going to be a little lower than Touly's. It's going to be a 5 out of 10. I expected a little more, and I'm not going to sugarcoat it. But yeah, this movie, if anybody wants to see it, you can still see it, enjoy it, but don't expect too much from it. Guess that does it for this this review of Godzilla vs. Kong. Please join us next time where we're going to review Justice League, the Zack Snyder cut.
But all you have to do is tear it in half, and I'm happy to discuss with you in any way you like why you sent a boy wonder to do a man's job.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. You can find our social media links below. And like always, keep watching movies.